Welcome, folks. This is All Minus One Story Time with Bill. We have been reading Nihilism, the Root of the Revolution of the Modern Age by Eugene Rose, or Father Seraphim Rose, who is an Orthodox Christian here in America. And he wrote this back in the 50s. And it's really a chapter from a larger volume of work that really wasn't ever printed. So the rest of his work, we don't know, or as far as I'm aware, we do not know what has happened to it. In any case, I've been covering this for several days, and we're going to continue here. If you can see here at the beginning of this editor's, you have the editor's preface, which was the first thing that I covered, and the introduction, and then we have these chapters here: liberalism, realism, vitalism, and the nihilism of destruction. I will probably cover each one of those, if possible, in one section, even if it makes the videos longer, just so we can get through it. For today, I will be finishing up once we get to that liberalism section. So let's get into it, guys. The pragmatist and the agnostic may be quite sincere and well-meaning, but they only deceive themselves and others if they continue to use the word truth to describe what they are seeking. Their existence, in fact, is testimony of the fact that the search for truth, which has so long animated European man, has come to an end. 4 centuries and more of modern thought have been, for one point of view, an experiment in the possibilities of knowledge open to man, assuming that there is no revealed truth. The conclusion which Hume already saw, and from which he fled into the comfort of the common sense and conventional life, and which the multitude sense today without possessing any such secure refuge. The conclusion of this experiment is an absolute negation. If there is no revealed truth, there is no truth at all. The search for truth outside of revelation has come to a dead end. The scientist admits this by restricting himself to the narrowest of specialties, content if he sees a certain coherence in a limited aggregate of facts, without troubling himself over the existence of any truth, larger or smaller, the magnitudes demonstrated by looking to the scientist, not for truth, but for the technological applications of knowledge, which has no more than a practical value, and by looking to other irrational sources for the ultimate value men once expected to find in truth. The despotism of science over practical life is contemporaneous with the advent of a whole series of pseudo-religious revelations. The two are correlative symptoms of the same malady, the abandonment of truth. And so to sum all of that up is, essentially he's saying the scientist really isn't pursuing truth, they're pursuing the application of science, which is engineering. In fact, when you are a doctor, you go to medical school, that's actually what you're doing. You're not practicing biology. You're practicing the application of biology. That's why it's a medical practice. You are doing something with it, but it doesn't mean that you are actually a scientist, as in a researcher. A lot of people confuse this when they go, well, I listen to my doctor. Well, your doctor might read medical papers. If he's a good doctor, he might read the newest facts, but most likely what he's getting is a distilled down and delineated view of facts that are from an institution up on high. And I say that kind of disparagingly because a lot of these institutions are just terrible and wrong and all about that money. It's not about the truth. We see this, say, with the American Diabetic Association, where they, for a very long time, have continued to tell people to eat high-carb diets and not low-carb, high-fat diets, which actually helps people control their diabetes. On the other hand, eating a high-carb diet makes you constantly have spikes of sugar, which require you to need more and more insulin. And until recently, they were all about that. And you have to understand that if they reverse their position, then they have decades of science that they've told the population to follow that they are now liable for. And we just can't have any of that. Now, can we? So again, it's about application. It's not necessarily about truth. And, he's talking about pragmatist here. I'm a bit of a pragmatist myself, but, I understand what he's saying. He's saying someone who's purely pragmatic and agnostic. So let's keep reading. Logic thus can take us this far. Denial or doubt of absolute truth leads, if one is consistent and honest, to the abyss of sylphism and irrationalism. The only position that involves no logical contradictions is the affirmation of the absolute truth, which underlines and secures all lesser truths. And this absolute truth can be attained by no relative human means. At this point, logic fails us, and we must enter an entirely different universe of discourse if we are to proceed. It is one thing to state that there is no logical barrier to the affirmation of absolute truth. It is quite another, actually, to affirm it. Such an affirmation can be based upon only one source. The question of truth must come, in the end, to the question of revelation, which is why Christ is so important in all of this, and God the Father himself. The critical mind hesitates at this point. Must we seek from without what we cannot attain by our own unaided power? It is a blow to pride. Most of all, to what pride which passes today for scientific humility, that sits down before fact as a little child and yet refuses to acknowledge any arbiter of fact save the proud human reason. It is, however, a particular revelation, divine revelation, the Christian revelation, that so repels the rationalist. Other revelations he does not gainsay. So this is interesting here where he's talking about a blow to pride, most of all to the pride which passes today for scientific humility. It very much puts me in the mindset of Dr. Fauci, who just says whatever he feels like saying and wants to be liked by the public and the media, and is enjoying his exposure right now as a celebrity. He basically says whatever comes to his head, and most of the time it's really stupid. It really is. Like double masking, that kind of stuff. Not, getting a vaccination, by the way, folks, prophylactic. That's what it really is. That word vaccine has a meaning. But anyways, by getting that, you still have to wear a mask and social distance and do everything else. So why would you do it, right? It's just, there's no humility in anything that he says. It's just a bunch of, oh, well, I said something. I'm the guy. I'm the go-to guy. Highest paid federal employee. Yep, hold on here, guys. My mouse is giving me the business. Indeed, the man who does not accept fully and consciously a coherent doctrine of truth, such as the Christian revelation provides, is forced, if he has any pretenses to knowledge whatsoever, to seek such a doctrine elsewhere. This has been the path of modern philosophy, which has ended in obscurity and confusion because it would never squarely face the fact that it cannot supply for itself what can only be given from without. And this is kind of interesting because I actually, in my quick shot segment, you guys will watch before this is released. Of course, I'm talking about this idea of ideology and language versus the pursuit of actual truth. And the reason why I brought it up is because the other night over on the Ends Justify the Memes, that is the live show that I do with a co-host and producer, we had Adam Kolkesh on. Adam Kolkesh has been a well-known advocate for veterans' rights and the end of our foreign wars, as well as a bit of a anarcho-capitalist and recently a libertarian candidate for president. That is the Libertarian Party. And in our conversation, it was mostly Adam speaking, and that's fine. But, Tank and I both took away from it. He seems to think he has everything figured out, and neither one of us believe that. Now, I have the pursuit of truth and I have Christ, but I don't follow really any sort of ideology. I change based on the knowledge. And that's how it should work. That is how revelation comes to you. You must change as things are revealed over time. Otherwise, you get stuck in your ideology. And just like he's talking here about scientists being stuck in their scientific mind or their scientific expertise and their hubris, that's what ideology does to people's minds as well. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, as if the ideologies take you over. The ideas themselves possess you. That's straight from Carl Jung. And it's very true, actually, that ideas do possess you like a demon or a spirit. They enter your body, and then you will defend it at all costs, even if it has been disproven to you. In fact, there's a psychological effect called the backfire effect, which when you learn something that is against your own beliefs, your own biases, then you double down on them. You don't accept the knowledge. See, that's inherent in the human condition. There's another one called confirmation bias. I'm sure most of you know about the confirmation bias, where you will seek out things to prove what you say is correct. You should actually be doing the opposite. In fact, the scientific method embraces that, though it rarely does it well, is that you should be seeking to disprove your hypothesis. Personally, I kind of like the balanced approach of doing both, and then letting things fall where they may, sorting it out, look at things logically, and of course, ask my Father to reveal the truth to me. That is the way that I try and pursue truth, which is why I don't really hold to any hard and fast ideologies, aside from perhaps, Christianity. But man, that's a big old label too, that a lot of people believe a lot of things in Christianity, and a lot of people who aren't Christians merely think of the Catholic Church, and I don't agree with a large portion of what the Catholic Church preaches, and I especially do not agree with the papacy. I have the same issues with Calvinism. People would assume that I might be all about, predestination, not really having any free will, the Calvinist tulip thing, and I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe in the idea of once saved, always saved. I think that it is a relationship, as described in the Bible, that you must maintain. But I do know that Christ did sacrifice himself, and I have accepted that, to Satan to bond me out of the slavery of this world, out of the kingdom of Satan, out of darkness, so that I can be reunited with God the Father and adopted into his family. Anyways, that is a full aside there. Let's get back to this text. The blindness and confusion of the modern philosopher with regard to first principles and the dimension of the absolute have been the direct consequence of their own primary assumption. Let me read that again, because again, it goes along with everything I just said. Let me highlight it. The blindness and confusion of modern philosophers with regard to first principles and the dimension of the absolute have been the direct consequence of their own primary assumptions. Again, confirmation bias. The non-existence of revelation for this assumption in effect blinded men to the light of the sun and rendered obscure everything that had been clear in its light. To one who gropes in this darkness, there is but one path. If he will not be healed of his blindness, and that is not to seek some light amidst the darkness here below. Many run to the flickering candle of common sense and conventional life and accept, because one must get along somehow. And again, I talk about this all the time. People go along to get along. They hedge their bets to fit in with what is normal. Normal, folks, is slavery. Normal is the kingdom of Satan, folks. Normal is what the leftists are pushing, the transsexual agenda, the pedophilic agenda. Normal is the fast and loose sexual promiscuity that is out there, right? Normal is not having children. Normal is being triggered constantly by the most mundane things, as if you have any clue what a real threat is in life. That is what currently is normal, or at least propped up as so. I think it's probably a little bit more, uh, people are generally a little bit more conservative. In fact, it breaks down about 50-50, unless you're talking about women, and then it's like 70% of women are leftist. But generally speaking, normal is the way of the world, and it's not the way that you are going to find any sort of peace, happiness, or meaning in your life. In fact, it's only going to bring about death, despair, and meaninglessness, which is tragic. And that's exactly what this is talking about, is nihilism. So, to one who gropes in the darkness, yeah, it's just there. Many run to the flickering candle of common sense and conventional life and accept, because one must get along somehow, the current opinions of the social and intellectual circles to which they belong. But many others find this light too dim, flock to the magic lanterns that project beguiling, multicolored views that are, if nothing else, distracting. They become devotees of this or the other political or religious or artistic current that is the spirit of the age, has thrown into fashion. Yeah, the zeitgeist, if you would. And again, I would suggest go reading at some point, which I will probably read here, Tolstoy's Confession, where he talks very much about this. He was already a very successful author within the art sphere, and he thought, and his friends thought, that they were just so great because they were atheists, and they thought how petty and stupid the Christians were and whatever else. All the while, he's going around being absolutely suicidal, but too coward to murder himself, until finally he comes to some revelation in God himself through a dream. In fact, quite outstanding, the whole process. An amazing read, by the way. In fact, no one lives but by the light of some revelation, be it a true or a false one, whether it serves to enlighten or obscure. He who will not live by the Christian revelation must live by a false revelation, and the false revelation led to the abyss. Just like I said, you are either in the kingdom of God or you are in the kingdom of Satan. There is nothing else, folks. There is no gray. There is plenty of gray in this world, in the kingdom of Satan, in life. But when it comes to God, you are either on his side or you are against him. We began this investigation with logical question: what is truth? The question may and must be framed with an entirely different point of view. The skeptic, Pilate, asked the question, though not in earnest. Ironically for him, he asked it of the truth himself. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but me. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Truth in the sense, truth that confers eternal life and freedom, cannot be attained by human means. It can only be revealed by or from above by one who has the power to do so. And I bring up that point a lot. Pilate said, what is truth? Told Christ that. This is the postmodernist perspective and viewpoint, folks. It's very old. There's nothing new under the sun. The path of this truth is a narrow one, and most men, because they travel the broad path, miss it. There is no man, however, for so the God who is truth creates him, who does not seek this truth. We shall examine in later chapters many of the false absolutes and false gods men have invented and worshipped in our idolatrous age. And we shall find that what is perhaps most striking about them is that every one of them, far from being any new revelation, is a dilution, a distortion, and perversion, or a parody of the one truth men cannot help but point to, even in their error and blasphemy and pride. And that's pretty much what you'll see in all other religions outside of Christianity. The notion of divine revelation has been thoroughly discredited for those who must obey the dictates of the spirit of the age. But it is impossible to extinguish the thirst for truth which God has implanted in man to lead them to him, and which can only be satisfied in the acceptance of his revelation. Even those who profess satisfaction with relative truths and consider themselves too sophisticated or honest or even humble to pursue the absolute, even they tire eventually. And of the fare of unsatisfying tidbits to which they are arbitrarily confined themselves and long for more substantial fare. Much like I just spoke of, you will get tired of these things. The whole food of Christian truth, however, is to access only to faith, and the chief obstacle to such faith is not logic, as the facile modern view has it, but another and opposed faith. We have seen indeed that logic cannot deny absolute truth without denying itself. First off, logic is the logos, which I believe he is getting at. The logos is Christ. Logos means logic. It means reason. It means plan. It means truth. It means purpose. It means all of those things in Greek and in first century metaphysical terms. Christ is the logic of the universe and the truth. That set itself up against Christian revelation is merely the servant of another revelation of a false absolute truth, namely nihilism. In the following pages, we shall characterize as nihilists men of, as it seems, wildly divergent views, humanists, skeptics, revolutionaries of all hues, artists and philosophers of various schools, but they are united in a common task, whether in positivist criticism of Christian truths and institutions, revolutionary violence against the old order, apocalyptic visions of universal destruction and the advent of paradise on earth, or objective scientific labor in the interest of a better life in this world. The tacit assumption being that there is no other world, their aim is the same, the annihilation of divine revelation and the preparation of a new order in which there shall be no trace of the old view of things, in which man shall be the only God there is. And that, my friends, I would agree. And again, we are going to stop there. That is a good place to stop. The stages of nihilistic dialectic will be coming next. And of course, after that, these are little subtitles here in which we will continue to pursue. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you liked it. I hope it was edifying for your soul and your spirit. I hope that you can go and pursue these things yourself. I know that Eugene Rose's writings is quite complex. It's a bit difficult. There's a lot of commas. There's a lot of very long sentences that are divided and thoughts going all over the place. It kind of, in reading it, makes me think of how I speak sometimes. I'm like, how well did I come across? But it is wholly true what he is saying, and it is profound. And like I have said numerous times in reading this over the last 2 weeks or so, it is very much in line with exactly what I try to tell people. Probably do a better job if I write things down myself instead of just running my mouth. But hey, that's how this video thing goes, right? I just get to run my mouth. In any case, folks, I appreciate you watching, and I will return. I will try to get more of these out more regularly. For sure, story time will be every Monday and Thursday. I might try and pre-record and release one on Wednesdays and maybe Saturdays as well. So look for those. If I do that, they will probably be at around 6 p.m. Eastern. But aside from that, folks, I might step it up some more just to get these out, because as far as the Great Reset goes, I mean, it's not a ton to read if I just read it straight through, but I'm adding commentary, so that makes it longer. And I want to get these out because I want to move on to other things in which you can pursue yourself. Don't just listen to what I have to say. Look into it yourself. Understand it. Always question what I am telling you. I have my stance, but it doesn't mean that my stance, my position is correct. You must pursue the truth for yourself. In any case, folks, with all that said, this has been All Minus One Story Time with Bill, and I wish you all well.